Yes, Father.
Yes. A very good afternoon to everyone present here today. Reverend Fathers, Dr. Mariama Matthew, today resource person, respected principals and teachers, a word of welcome to third day of webinar on the topic preparation of yearly plan, unit plan, and lesson plan. As teachers all are familiar with this topic, the planning is an important element in our day-to-day life, especially in teaching learning process. Proper classroom planning will keep teachers organized and on track while teaching. A better prepared educator will able to tackle whatever unexpectedly happens in the section lesson. As our new academic year starts to begin by mid of June. So this webinar will be helpful to each one of us to plan and organize teaching learning process. It's proud moment, especially for me to introduce our today's resource person, Dr. Mariama Matthew, my teacher. Currently, she serves as principal of Pete Memorial College, Mavelikara, Kerala. She is a great teacher with sense of warm, accessible, enthusiastic, caring. She also values each person's ideas and opinions. So me and my colleagues were feel safe to express our feelings and learn to respect and listen to others. Especially, she maintained professionalism in all areas. Time flies, people grow, taken on new challenges, forgot the past, and move on. But I will never forget the time I have spent as your student. Thank you, ma'am, for you being here, being my teacher. I request to Renju S. Ravindran take our charge. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Father. It's my pleasure to take an opportunity to introduce such an honored personality, Dr. Mariama Matthew, the principal of Pete Memorial Training College, Mavelikara, Kerala. She's a rank holder in MEd and has done her PhD in science education. She's a recipient of UGC major project on development of e-portfolios, and it is the first kind among training colleges in India. She's a curriculum planner both in the B.Ed and MEd level and has made drastic, fruitful changes in the present curriculum, especially techno-pedagogical content knowledge analysis. She has published articles in 35 reputed peer-reviewed journals and UGC listed journals, served as a resource person in many HRD programs and also in many other institutions. She has received Dr. N.P. Pillai Memorial Literacy Award in Teacher Education. Dr. K.R. Shivadasan Memorial National Award for Accomplished Teacher Educator and Research Excellence Award constituted by Institute of Scholars. She has published 3 academic books on science education and has contributed chapters in 8 edited books. And she has made many international visits and presented papers, including at the 17th UNESCO Applied International Conference at Bangkok, Thailand. Without any further delay, I'd like to welcome you to start the session, ma'am. Please.
Thank you, all of you, for your kind and warm words. Hope you can see me and hear me too. Can anybody say
Yes,
whether
ma'am.
my audio?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Respected patron of MGM Group of Institutions, His Grace Dr. Joseph Mar Dionysius, respected fathers who are present here, respected Father Sijo Chako, who is my B.Ed student, teachers of MGM Higher Secondary School, Bagdona, and all other teachers who are present in this online platform. And it is a great privilege for me to talk to you. And as a teacher educator for the past 26 years, teaching is always a passion for me, and also the knowledge which I can deliver to others is again my passion and again my field of interest. And always I say that teachers as well as students are lifelong learners. Why? Because only if you learn will you develop. That is, especially for teachers, we know we are now categorized into a professional one. That is, teaching is a professional career. Why? Because we always update our knowledge and we deal with students, different types of students, different levels of students. And you've always faced a heterogeneous class, a mixture of students who are having different aptitude, different way of learning, coming from different socioeconomic background, etc. And we are dealing with such type of people, and also we are dealing a vast variety of subjects and methods and techniques, etc. And we are updating our knowledge each and every moment, all things which take place around us, and we are delivering it to the students, and we are making them what is called useful citizens of our country. So it is a great job that teachers are doing. So teaching is considered as a noble profession, we know, and also it is a profession like all other professions such as doctors, engineers, lawyers, chartered accountants. In the past years, it was not considered as profession. It was only one of the jobs. But when there was a drastic change in the curriculum of teacher education programs, they included one item in it, that is one objective, that is teaching should be a professional degree should be provided, and also there should be avenues for professional development. So how can one develop professionally? He should not only update his knowledge, but also he should deliver this knowledge which he has with him to the students who is the community before you, sitting before you. And we all also know that teaching is the biggest community which is present in our country. And we know there are about 1 year, 15 lakhs of teachers are being produced every year by our country, but there is need of only 3 to 4 lakhs per year. So what will the rest of the teachers do? Those who hold a degree, they will go for other jobs maybe, and they will make their own living by becoming an entrepreneur. So number of possibilities are there if you are a trained graduate and a trained postgraduate. So you all are lucky to become teachers, especially in this vast culture of our country. And you are from different states, I presume, and hope today's session will be beneficial for you. Especially, we are dealing with the topic planning. Even though you know more about planning, but we should have some what is called systematic way of doing something. And for that, we need planning. We plan in life, isn't it? We plan everything. And we always say, even though man plans, it is only in the hands of God. If he gives only, we will get it, isn't it? Yes. So we have got planning in each and every minute. What we will do tomorrow, or what we will do in the future, what will happen to our family, or siblings, or sons and daughters. And we are planning everything, isn't it? And for our work also, we are planning what we will teach tomorrow, isn't it? And how we will teach it tomorrow. So all these things come under planning. And as housewives, we plan what to cook for tomorrow. So everything is going on in a systematic way. So same thing for teaching also. Teachers should plan. As far as learners are concerned, students also should plan. So we are coming to the different aspects of planning, and as the topic reveals, we are going to deal with year plan, unit plan, and lesson plan. Okay. You should tell me whether you are seeing my screen. Can you see?
Yes, ma'am, I can see.
It is visible.
Is it clear?
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Okay. So we'll move to, without wasting much time, we'll move to our topic. So we are dealing with different types of planning, includes year plan, unit plan, and lesson plan. So what is the use of planning? That we should know first. Okay. So why are we planning? Why? Because you want to, first of all, we always say that we plan because we don't want to waste time. Is there? Because if we are not planning what is happening in our teaching learning processes, we say one thing and sometimes repeat it a number of times. We won't know. So we are wasting a lot of time there. And also, students will deliberately think what is happening to this teacher. She's or he's telling the same thing more and more times, isn't it? So to avoid waste of time, that is the most important thing we are planning. And also, we always say that we set certain objectives before we do any action. For example, I'm going to sleep and I have got an objective for sleeping. Why? Because I want to be refreshed. And if I'm tired, that should also be reduced through my sleep. So I have got objective in each and every action. So planning is very much important to realize certain objectives. And also, we know before a lesson or before going to a class, we plan it in advance, isn't it? That is, we plan and prepare 2 or 3 days ago or 1 week ago. And we will set certain objectives. After the 40 minutes lesson or 1 hour lesson, what will happen? The student should learn such and such things. Okay, that is my planning. And certain objectives should be achieved. And also, if I'm going to teach an 8th standard student, their previous knowledge will be beginning from the 5th standard. So the previous knowledge includes all the content related to 5th, 6th, 7th, related to the topic which I'm going to teach in the 8th standard. So that also should be kept in mind. So when I plan, I should know what are the objectives, what is my previous knowledge, what are the students' previous knowledge, what is the content, what are the learning experiences that I am going to provide to the students for the achievement of the objectives. And at last, we can say we are going to evaluate the students. Okay, that is, for every action you go take, there should be an assessment or an evaluation part. Why? To modify my methods or my strategies or my way of teaching. So for every action, there should be an evaluation procedure at the end. So planning also includes evaluation procedures, and for the teacher to identify and select the appropriate strategies and methods. You come across a number of methods, such as the difference between methods, approaches, techniques, strategies. These are the 4 things which we use in the classroom, but we always confuse with all these 4 things. That is, the approaches are something in general. Okay, that is, there may be inductive approach, deductive approach, or there may be a constructive approach. So a number of approaches are there. And inside the approach, what you're going to do is, in a classroom, you adopt certain methods, such as the lecture method, lecture demonstration, project method, assignment method, historical method. So these are the methods. Now, inside the methods, you will use certain small tricks. Those tricks are called the techniques, such as brainstorming, buzz session, okay, debates, discussions. So all these are some small techniques which you use. And all together, that is, the techniques, the methods, the approaches, all together are called what is called a strategy. So what a teacher is doing in the classroom is he is actually adopting a strategy in the classroom. That is, it is a mixture of approaches, methods, and techniques. So from the first minute of his class to the last minute, he is switching over from one method to another method, from one technique to another technique, from one approach to another approach. So he is having a strategy with him. So this planning also helps him to select appropriate strategies and materials. So if I'm going to do what is called an individual laboratory work in the classroom, so what I will do is I will try to gather some improvised materials or improvised aids or teaching aids, what you call, and bring it in the classroom. If there are 40 students in my class, I will divide them into very small groups and provide each group with different materials. So planning helps to identify what all materials should be selected. So that is why we are not wasting any time. So we are planning. And also at last, planning gives teacher a sense of security and confidence. That is I am confident now because I have got a number of slides with me. I have planned it in advance to present it before you. And if I'm coming offhand, what will happen? No confidence, no security. Isn't it? I will be afraid to face an audience, but I feel very confident and very self-sufficient if I have with me a good plan. Isn't it? So that is why you plan. So every teacher, what they should do is they should plan. And it should be done in advance. Why? Not the day before. Why? Because if there is any modification to be made or any flaws are there, that can be rectified. There should be time period for that. That is why you should plan in advance. Now, I have told you already came across. That is the fundamental questions regarding planning. What to plan or to who, to which group I am going to plan, when to plan, where to plan, why and how. So these all things I have already answered. Who means to which group, the needs, the aspirations, the capacity, the capability of a 6th standard student is different from a 10th standard student. Why? Because their chronological age is increasing. As the chronological age increases, the needs also increase. So a teacher should definitely know the needs of each and every student and plan accordingly. That is, he should always plan for a heterogeneous class. What is a heterogeneous class? Heterogeneous class means a group consisting of different level of students, such as slow learners, fast learners, above average students, below average students. Then we can say gifted students, students who are physically challenged, intellectually challenged. So all these types of students are there in our class, isn't it? So what we should do, we should try to help the students achieve their needs. For that, planning is very much important. Now, what I am going to plan, that is, suppose I am going to take a science subject and I am going to teach them the second chapter. And in the second chapter, I am going to teach a very small topic, which is the continuation of the first few topics. So what I'm going to do, I will try to plan it by linking the previous knowledge and with the new knowledge. Okay, linking the previous knowledge with the new knowledge. Then that is the question for the answer for the question how I'm going to plan. That is, I will plan in such a way that all the topics in a particular unit or a chapter is in continuation. That is very much needed. Because you cannot teach one topic in isolation. Everything is connected together. And also, how can I plan? When I'm going to teach chemistry, for example, or I'm going to, I'm going to teach chemistry, acids, a topic acids from chemistry. When I'm going to teach acids, what will I do? Not simply stick on to chemistry, but I am going to correlate with other subjects, for example, biology. So when I correlate with other subject in biology, what will happen is, we know about the digestive system and all the acids present in the digestive system. So when I talk about acids in chemistry, I correlate it with biology. So what a student is getting is, student will have to learn all these subjects. So when a teacher says different aspects from different what is called subjects, what will the students feel is that they will feel very happy because they might have be interested in some some subjects. So when they hear that subject, they will be very much interested. And they also feel how these subjects are correlated, isn't it? So no one can teach one subject in isolation. And also, when should you actually plan? I have already told you should plan very well in advance and also try to rehearse in advance. Whether if you're going to show an activity in the classroom, what you should do is always called rehearse in advance. And when you rehearse in advance, there won't be any problem when you bring that activity in the classroom. There won't be any difficulty faced, is it? So that is what is happening in planning. Then, where to plan? Sometimes you will have different possibilities. That is, now we are in an online situation, online platform, isn't it? So we are at home, and we have got a lot of what is called gadgets with us to collect a lot of information. Lot of sources of information are there, but we are not be able to go to the school library because we are locked down at home. So making use of the avenues, whether it be the school library or in the school or at home, you plan. And you know, teachers have got very few what is called free hours or free periods. And I have seen certain teachers who only they get one free period in a day, and that free period will be utilized for planning for the next week's portions. So wherever be the teacher be seated, whether he's in the classroom or in the staff room or anywhere, it should be done in a proper manner. Then why? I've told you the necessities of planning. So you have the answer to that question, why? Then how? I have told you, you can plan in different ways. Either you take the whole chapter, divide into small lessons, or you get an overview that is called the gestaltic view, that is the whole view of the whole chapter, and then you give a whole picture to the students, and then you break down into small parts, and then you try to make it very comfortable to the students by dividing into small fragments. You know, one chapter can be taught in one period, and also a small topic can also be taught in one period. So which will be the most effective? The most effective will be teaching a very small content in one period. That includes a number of experiences, number of questions, number of what is called different ideas, activities, etc. So that is the answer to all these questions. Okay. So we are coming to what is called year plan. Or from the name itself, you can understand there are a variety of mainly about 10 subjects to be learned by a student, and there are 10 different teachers, maybe more than that, teaching a particular class, and they are going to. But actually what is happening is this year plan is not done by the teachers. It will be done by an education board and it will be given to us. But what is happening is that is, we always say there is flexibility. That is flexible from the part of the teachers to what is called arrange the topics, arrange the chapters. But here also there is one drawback. That is, there will be term or midterm exams. And the midterm exams contain certain portions. That is, questions will be asked from the first two chapters. So the first two chapters should be taught, isn't it? That should be taught. That there is no flexibility there, isn't it? Now I think I am going to teach the first chapter in the last portion of the academic year. That I cannot do. So actually this year plan will be given by a set of people who arrange it in a board or planning board or education board like that. But what is happening in year plan, you should know. That is, it will be an arranging of the units, that is the chapters of a subject that is assigned in a particular year. And for that, what should the teacher do? When he gets a year plan, what he will do is, that is, he is trying to understand the total working days, okay? But we actually know that the total working days are not the actual working days. Is it? There will be a lot of in between holidays, or some hartals or buns will come in between, or there will be some natural calamities or natural problems will be there, so there will be a holiday, or some distraction takes place in the school, so that will be considered as a holiday, no classes there. So that will be considered as the actual working day. So when a teacher gets the year plan with him, what he will have to do, divide it into two areas. One is the total working days. So the planners were planning it for the total working days. But what the teacher should do is, he will have with him the actual working days. So with the actual working days, he can again make this arrangement, polished one or modified one. Okay, so the teachers will get the actual working days with them, and also the portions that are given by the planners as year plan, and also each chapter for the prescribed months, that you will get an idea if you see this what is called um, a small what is a diagrammatic representation of how you can plan. That is serial number. In the serial number, you will write the different chapters. Unit means chapters. Write the different chapters, and some chapter will be big, some chapter will be very small, isn't it? So planning is done accordingly. And also, even if you say if the chapter is small but it contains a lot of activities, it will take a lot of time. But if some chapters will be very big, but it will contain only the theories or explanations, no activities. So it will take less time. So depending upon the depth of the chapter, depth of the content, you can divide the chapter for the number of periods. That is number of periods. How much period will I take for completing one chapter? Maybe 8. For 8 periods, after 8 periods, I will complete the chapter. Or after 6 periods, I will get that chapter completed. And which month? If the academic year starts from June, so the first chapter will take some, for example, number of periods maybe 6. The month is for June. So what all methods I am going to adopt, that the teacher can make. Okay, I am going to do such and such, or I am going to stick on to certain methods or strategies, or what is called the whole strategy as a whole. That is, it includes techniques, it includes the approaches, the methods. So that can be also mentioned in the year plan. And what are learning aids I require to complete that first chapter? That is, it requires some external aids which I do not have in the school or in the classroom. I will have to go and collect it from outside. Maybe I will improvise it with the waste materials that is in the surroundings. I will make it to a beautiful teaching aid, and that I will bring it in the classroom. I will make some 5 or 6 and give it to small groups. Okay, so this will be again what is called written in the column learning aids. And the last column is objectives. So what all objectives I have set before that chapter is being to be completed. So maybe to help the students get an understanding of the topic, or maybe the students have to apply their knowledge in their life situations, or maybe the students have to analyze it, synthesize it, or maybe the students have to evaluate it. So all these are the objectives that have been set before me before I am going to teach that particular unit to the class. So that is what is to be written in the column objectives. Write in some few sentences. Don't make it very elaborate. Write only 1 or 2 sentences like that. So you will have a unit plan. That is, for the whole year, you will have maybe some 10 or 12 chapters are there. So you will get after one after the other, the whole thing is set there. You will keep it in front of you, and excuse me. Can't you see my screen? Can anybody
No.
see?
No, ma'am. But we can see the display, but your slides are not visible.
Okay, let me see. Can you see now? Can you see it?
No, ma'am. Yeah,
Can you see
yes,
this?
ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Now it's
Now
okay.
it's okay.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Till which slide did you see? Did you see this year plan?
No, ma'am. From beginning itself.
No, did you see this slide? That is the different questions that I have told you.
No.
Okay. Did you get the explanation?
Yeah.
Okay. Fine. So that is what is the answer to all these questions. Okay. That I have already told you. Now I am coming to what is called the year plan, isn't it? That is year plan. In year plan, what is happening is, I told you. Can you see the slide? If there is any interruption, you should unmute your mic and tell me, okay? Then only I will hear it, okay? Can you see the slide? That is the year plan slide.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So what is happening in year plan is you are going to divide the whole subject into different units or different chapters, and that will be assigned for a year. Okay, and that for that you should know what are the total working days and the actual working days, and then you divide the whole the whole topics or the chapters into 4 different months. That I will show you this slide. Can you see this slide? Can you see
Yes,
this slide?
ma'am. Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
Yes.
And this slide will give you an idea of how a year plan is being done. That is, in the left side, you have the serial number, isn't it? What the serial number denotes is the number of chapters. Maybe you have 10 to 12 chapters. Then the first chapter you take, that is included the second column, unit. You write the what is called the name of the chapter. Then number of periods. What is number of periods? Maybe I have told you one chapter will be big, one chapter will be small, and it will take a few periods, maybe 6 or 8 periods. But certain other chapters will take some 12 periods. But there are certain big chapters, but less of activities, only explanations. It will take only less time. Okay, some chapters will be very small, but it will be full of activities. It will take more time. So as a teacher, you should know how much time you require to complete one chapter and divide that chapter into small lessons. Okay. And for that, you require after how many periods will that chapter will be over. That is number of periods. Okay. And that will be written in and that will be taken in which month? Maybe June, July, August. So you are going in a sequence, 1, 2, 3 for June, July, August. Okay, then what are the methods adopted or the strategy which you're going to adopt in the classroom? Maybe it is activity-based method, or maybe it is what is called a project method, or maybe it will be a lecture demonstration method, or it will be what is called assignment method or a laboratory method. So depends upon the chapter. Then there comes the learning aids. What all learning aids or teaching aids you can bring? What all support system you can bring in the classroom? Okay, and then what all objectives are there? I have told you in the beginning that we set certain objectives. Those objectives shall be written in 1 or 2 sentences. That is, what all objectives will be achieved at the end of this chapter, at the end of this unit. So hope you got this idea how to prepare a year plan. Okay. Hope the slide is clear. The slide of the year plan is clear. Yes?
Yes, ma'am.
So can I go to the next slide? Now we are coming to some practical tips for creating a unit plan. So what is a unit? So we'll have to understand what a unit is. So we can say a combination of number of units will form a year plan, isn't it? So year plan can be divided into a number of units. Combination of different units form the year plan. So what is happening in a unit? So what is actually a unit? It is a block of interrelated subject matter. So suppose, for example, I am going to teach the unit, the chapter work, power, energy. That is a chapter in physics. So what is happening there is, it is a combination of different blocks. One is work, one is power, one is energy. So what is happening in work is you are giving a lot of examples for work, lot of what is called units of work, lot of numerical problems related to work. Then comes power. And then power is related to work. And also you have got a lot of content in power. And what you got is you got a lot of numerical problems in power, lot of what is called numerical units in power. Then comes energy, different types of energy and different problems related to energy, different applications of energy. So this forms a big unit. And what is happening in unit is you're going from the simple to complex. You always note in a chapter, you will see that you're going to introduce the chapter first, then you go to the presentation, and then you conclude, isn't it? So when you go in a sequence, you always see that there is going from simple to complex or from known to unknown. So that is being taken place in a chapter. So it is a block of interrelated subject matter. And also we also say that there is correlation. So when I teach physics, when I am going to teach the structure of an eye, I am going to relate it to biology. Isn't it? And when I teach biology, the structure of the eye, there will be lenses. The lenses will be there in physics. So I'm going to correlate it. Okay? And also, I'm going to give a big gestalt of teaching learning situation. What is gestalt? Gestalt means whole. A whole picture of my teaching learning situation to the students. That is, students, we are going to start a new chapter today. And what is underlying in this chapter is all such and such things. So first give a whole view, whole idea about what you're going to teach. And then you break into small parts. That is the best way of teaching. Okay. So the students will get an idea. Okay. After this, the next thing will be taught. After this. So there should be a continuation. And I should not leave any class. Or I should not be absent in any class, isn't it? So only if they want some continuity, they will have to be present in the class, either it be offline or online. Okay. And then next one is what is a unit is? The unit is a combination of different lessons. Again, we say, so year plan divided into different units, unit plan divided into different lessons. So this is the sequence. Okay. So this is what is meant by a unit. Now we are coming to, can you see the slide? This is a very important slide as far as unit plan is concerned. Hope you can see the slide. Can you see it?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. This is the slide, diagrammatic representation of a unit plan. And we say that in the left side there is a serial number. So what is happening there is, we are taking, for example, a particular chapter. So here we give importance to the chapter. And here you are going to divide the chapter into different lessons. And you have in mind what is the duration of a period. If it is 40 minutes, okay, 45 or 1 hour. What is the duration of the period? So within that period, how much content I can teach. If I have got 45 minutes with me, I am not going to teach all the 45 minutes, isn't it? No. I am going to introduce the topic for some 5 to 7 minutes. Then I am going to enter into a very, what is called a conversation with the students. I am going to check their previous knowledge. Then I am coming to what is called my presentation. That is, I am going to teach them something new. And here comes, if there is some activity there, or if I'm going to use a charm or some project using some videos, YouTube videos are there, or I'm going to do an activity. While I'm going to do an activity, there will be a lot of distraction. I'm going to maintain this discipline, maintain in the classroom. And after teaching some few subtopics, I'm going to question them. And when I question them, I understand that the students are not answering properly. So I'm going to teach them again once more. I'm going to understand the problems of the child. I'm going to cite few what is called life-related examples. So this process goes on in a teaching learning process. Okay. So teaching the whole content within 45 minutes is a very tedious task, because we are not going to teach the whole content, or we are not going to teach very big things in a 45 minutes time. We can teach only maximum 25 to 30 minutes. The rest remains of maintaining discipline, questioning, then catering to the needs of the student, introduction of the lesson, then asking previous knowledge, checking the previous knowledge, and this process goes on, giving them assignments, homeworks, and all. That is the whole total 45 minutes which we have. But we get only some 25 to 30 or 30 to 35 minutes for actual teaching. So you should know how much content you should select. So you have got the textbook with you and you are going to mark from this to this I am going to teach, from this page to this page I am going to teach the first period. And that content you have, that you divide again into small pieces. That content will be divided into small pieces or analyzed. That is why the second column is called content analysis. So you're going to analyze the small content which you have and write it there. How will you write it? It will be written in the form of facts. You know what is a fact? Fact is a truth or a reality, isn't it? So that truth or reality will be presented in the form of examples. For example, I will give you a simple example from chemistry. I am going to prepare chlorine gas in the classroom. How can I prepare chlorine gas in the classroom? I will take a test tube, put some potassium permanganate into it, pour few drops of dilute hydrochloric acid, and after few minutes I will shake it, and after few minutes I will see a gas evolved. And that gas is greenish yellow in color. Okay, that is a physical property of the chlorine gas. So how I am going to write the content analysis? So my lesson's name is Laboratory Preparation of Chlorine Gas and its Physical Properties. That will be taught in a period of 45 minutes. Okay, and it will take some time to do the activity. And I am going to write the fact. The first fact is chlorine gas can be prepared in the laboratory by the reaction of potassium permanganate and dilute hydrochloric acid. Okay, that is my first fact. Then, what will be the second fact? Chlorine gas is greenish yellow in color. What is the third fact? Chlorine gas is pungent smelling. Okay, so these are the physical properties. So I will write in the content analysis. First one, chlorine gas can be prepared in the laboratory by the reaction of. Okay, second fact, chlorine gas is greenish yellow in color. Third fact, chlorine gas is pungent smelling. So that is what you write in content analysis. So what you are writing in content analysis, the facts which you are going to present in the classroom, which will be through examples. The facts presented by the teacher. So that will be written in the second column. Third column, time allotted, you know, it will be 40 or 45 minutes, you will write there. Method adopted, that is maybe laboratory method or activity-based method, okay, or lecture demonstration method, whatever be depending upon the topic. Then the contextual objectives. So what are the contextual objectives? Here you're going to write all the things which the student will gain at the end of the lesson. So what are the students gaining in this lesson? That is, the students are able to, what? They are able to, what is called, remember the facts, the concepts, isn't it? Apply this knowledge in new situations. Or they are going to, what is called, analyze the topic, that is laboratory preparation of chlorine gas. Okay, or they are going to synthesize their information, or they are going to evaluate, that is, what are the applications of chlorine. Chlorine is used as a bleaching agent. Oh, okay, so that is being understood by the students. So all these things will be covered in a class, and that will, those objectives will be set by the teacher before the class, and at the end of the class the teacher will see whether these objectives have been understood. How? Through evaluation procedures. That is in the what you can see in the next you can see the teaching learning aids, the other one is the evaluation. Okay, so we can say the evaluation, the contextual objectives and the teaching learning aids, those three columns come together. Contextual objectives, teaching learning aids and evaluation. These three are related to each other. That is, you set certain objectives and you provide adequate learning experiences to the child through teaching learning aids, and at last you will see that you will evaluate whether these objectives have been achieved. Okay, and at last you give references. That is, you have referred not only your textbook, but also you have gone through some YouTube videos, or you have gone through some sites, internet sites, websites. You have gone through some other textbooks such as some more supplementary readers or dictionaries or encyclopedias. So whatever you have used for your reference will be written in the last column. So hope you got an idea about how to write a unit plan. So this process goes on. First chapter is over, you come to the second chapter, second unit, and the whole process will again be repeated. This will go on till the last chapter, till the last unit. Okay. And so what are the essential activities of unit planning? Yes, I have already told you while I was explaining. That is, you have set certain objectives. So while you select a unit, when you have a unit with you, you will select what all objectives are to be achieved. Now we can say that all the objectives cannot be achieved in one lesson. Certain objectives will have place in the second lesson. So that will be written there. Okay. Then selection of the type of unit, what type of unit, what type of chapters. And also here there is no much flexibility from the part of the teacher, because you will have to cover the portions within before the first term exam. So you will have to cover the first 3 chapters. So that will be sequenced in a way like that. But there is flexibility in what context? That is, you can choose your learning situations. Isn't it? That is the creativity of the teacher, each and every teacher. What learning situations can I provide in the classroom? Sometimes that learning situation provided by a teacher A will be different from teacher B in another school. Is it? Because there is flexibility. It depends upon the creativity, depends upon the effort of the teacher. If the teacher wants a student, all the students, that is all levels of students, because I told you it is a heterogeneous class, and students face and the teachers also face problems from a heterogeneous class, and it is the duty of each and every teacher to transact the curriculum or transact the content in equal frequencies to all the students. So what are learning situations can be brought in the classroom? For that, the teacher has to choose from the different learning situations depending upon the audience, depending upon the target group, depending upon the facilities available, depending upon the complexity of the unit. You can select the learning situations. And also select the knowledge component. What type of knowledge will be imparted by teaching this unit? Isn't it? The knowledge imparted by teaching force in physics will be different from the knowledge imparted by teaching maps in geography. It is different because the content is different and the nature of the subject is also different. So students are getting a variety of knowledge components, isn't it? And it is made very interesting. And we know teaching should be made a fun in the classroom. And that is being done. And the students will, what is happening is students will automatically create an interest or a so when they are in the knowledge level, they are only in the lower order thinking skill. So what is the difference between the original Bloom and the revised Bloom? So what is happening in revised Bloom is the action word is used here. The action word. Action word, from the name itself, you can see that remembering. That is, you are doing an action in the classroom. That is, you are remembering certain things. Okay. Then the next level is understanding. And the next is applying, analyzing. Okay. We have skipped synthesizing, but the synthesizing will be coming in the last one. That is, you can see creating. So that creating is a new term used in revised Bloom's taxonomy, which was not there. We cannot say it was not there in the original Bloom. It was there, but in a different name. But in revised Bloom, it is known as creating, and it not only what is called includes synthesis, but also includes other factors also, where the students are creating something new. Okay, creating something new. So he's at the topmost of a teaching learning process. Beyond that, he cannot think. That is, we can say that in a classroom, there will be 40 students, suppose. There will be one student who will think to the maximum level. We cannot expect all the 40 to think in the higher level, isn't it? It is our expectation, but in actual practice, it is not possible. There will be students There will be a group of students, sometimes 2 or 3 students, who can reach the highest level. And beyond that, they cannot think of that topic, the topic under consideration. That is the topic you are teaching. So this is the difference between the original and the revised Bloom. So we are giving importance to the revised Bloom's taxonomy. So here I have already told you, we are using the action word: remembering, understanding, applying, analyzing, evaluating, and instead of synthesizing, use the term creating. So what is happening in remembering is you're recalling from your memory. What is happening in understanding? Grasping the meaning of it. Okay, what is happening in applying? You are using this information in similar situation. What is happening in analyzing? Take apart the known and identify the relationships. That is breaking the big thing into small parts. What is happening in evaluating? You are examining the information and making judgments. And last, creating, you are creating something new based on all the information which you have gained. And now we'll come to McCormack and Yager, just for your awareness. Here we use 5 domains. That is knowledge domain, process domain, creativity domain, attitudinal domain, and application domain. The same thing. The base is original Bloom. And from that only we have taken all these taxonomies. So under the knowledge domain, there's knowledge and understanding. And the process domain, there's explaining and discovering. Under the creativity domain, there is imaging and creating. Imaging. That is, imaging means forming different relationships. That is a divergent way of thinking, forming different relationships or different conclusions coming to. Attitudinal domain is feeling and valuing. That is, you create a positive attitude towards that subject. Positive attitude towards the person who deals with that subject. Okay, then the application domain, by you using and applying. So these are the further classifications based on the original Bloom. Now we'll come to the lesson planning. So what is happening in lesson plan? Okay, we know that this is the actual thing which we are doing in before we go to a class, isn't it? We prepare lesson notes. We know it is known in different names: lesson materials, lesson notes, lesson planning, and all. But it has a base. That is, first you prepare the year plan, then the unit plan, and then comes the lesson plan. Okay, and we'll come to lesson plan. For what a lesson plan is? For what? It is a prerequisite for successful teaching. That is, you should have with you. Just don't go offhand and go and teach something, come back. The next day you go and you repeat the same thing and you take a small portion of the new one and then come back without any what is called a systematic or organized way. What will the students feel of you? They are doing work in a systematic way, and if the teacher does not go systematically, what will happen? So you should not cut a poor figure before the students. So you have a prerequisite with you for successful teaching, and it's a guide for the teacher, isn't it? I have seen some of my trainees go with the lesson plan in the classroom, and after 10 minutes, they will forget what to do. Then they will refer to that record or the piece of paper which they have, and then will come back. Okay, so that becomes a guide for them. That is for the newcomers. That is for the trainees. But as experienced teachers as you are, you keep this guide with you, but don't refer it. Okay, because you should have in your mind what comes next. Deliberately, it should come. And you know what happens when you stop for a moment? That becomes a period of silence, and there will be utter confusion in the classroom. So begin it, continue. And this process should go on in a continuation till the end of the class. And it is for the personal use. Why personal use? Because the lesson plan which you have prepared sometimes may not be beneficial for another person, because you have written it according to your creativity, according to your imagination, isn't it? According to your what is the availability of the resources. That may not be the same with another person. So it is for your personal use. And we'll come to the different lesson plan formats. These are the common used format. One is the Herbartian format that was developed by a famous educationalist named Herbart. Then comes the 2 schools of thought: constructivist school of thought and the behaviorist school of thought. What is the difference between these two? And what is happening in behaviorist school of thought is that is actually a teacher-dominated or teacher-centered method, where the teacher goes to the classroom. He has got a lesson plan with him, and he has written in it that is, I am going to teach such and such topic, and the students should come in my way. That is, they should think as I am thinking. That is, their change of behavior should be according to the wish of mine. So, and it will go on like that. So it becomes a teacher dominated. What is happening in teacher dominated is that the students do not have any facility for sharing their ideas, asking any doubts, sharing the feelings, or something like that, isn't it? So that becomes behaviorist. And just the opposite of behaviorist is constructivist, where the students are given a position, in a position to construct new knowledge. There is democratic atmosphere in the classroom. It becomes student-centered. So what is student-centered is everything is centered around the student. That is, all the teaching learning process is for the student. They will be given provision for them to share their ideas, share their feelings, ask their doubts, share it with others, communicate it to teachers. So these are process goes on in constructivist format. So these are the three main types of lesson plans formats which we use in the classroom. So what is behaviorism versus constructivism? I have told you already. That is, behaviorism you give importance to. That is, you have to follow the instructor or the teacher. You have to take a test given by them, and you get the reward and then learn. Just leave it. But what happens to constructivism? That is, you are placing certain things there, isn't it? Here you are giving importance to the student, and the student can what is called certain. There are certain stages where student can set the objectives. What I have to learn, they can set objectives according to their needs. That is, I will learn these and these things, and it is wholly meant for the student. So that type of lesson plan which you construct is constructivist lesson plan. Now, we are coming to the Herbartian steps developed by Herbart. Mainly, there are 6 steps in this lesson plan. The first step is preparation or introduction. We already know that. So what is happening in preparation or introduction is, I have written in ABC, that is testing the previous knowledge. So when you go and introduce a new topic, as a teacher, you should know where the students are. Isn't it? Where the students are. For that, you test the previous knowledge. Then you assess the interest and curiosity. That is, are you interested in learning this topic? And for that, you introduce the lesson in such a way that the students will be motivated. They will be curious to learn. And we always say that the success of a lesson plan depends upon how well you introduce the topic. So you can introduce the topic with the help of an activity, with the help of a video clip, with the help of a small experiment, with the help of pictures, photographs, illustrations. Isn't it? You can do a number of things in the classroom to make the pupil develop interest and curiosity. And you will motivate the students. As a result, you can motivate them also. The second step is, after the introduction, you will go to the presentation. So you are going to present the facts to the student. I have already told you, chlorine gas is prepared in the laboratory with the help of potassium permanganate and dilute hydrochloric acid. So you bring the test tubes and all these things in the class, demonstrate it, or ask the few pupils to do the same thing. It is not much dangerous. The students can do in the classroom. So you are going to present the topic. Then you are going to compare and associate. What is comparison and association? There are 2 types of association. That is, you are going to associate with the previous topic which you have taught with the new topic, and the new topic with what is happening in the surroundings. So comparison or association. Then comes generalization. So once you have taught a particular topic in the classroom, the same thing can be generalized. That is, same thing can be associated with other things also and brought as generalization. And the next one is application. That is, for every topic, there will be an application. That application should be mentioned by the teacher, or you ask the students to mention the application. And the last step is recapitulation. That is, you are going to summarize. We say recap, isn't it? Summarize the whole thing. From the first subcomponent content which you have taught in the class to the last one, you summarize. Either it be by using a chart, or by writing a blackboard summary, or by showing what is called video or showing a pictorial representation using a projector. Anything you can do, any method you can adopt for recapitulation. So these are the steps involved in the lesson planning of the Herbartian format. Hope you are clear with this. Hope my sound is clear and my slide. Any interruptions? Can anybody say?
No, ma'am. It's clear.
Okay. Next is the constructivist format. From the diagram, you will see 5 things beginning with E. Here we say the 5 E's. Okay, 5 E's. So what is happening in 5 E's? First of all, first step, we'll start from engage. Engage is the first step. So you are going, what is meant by engage? Engaging is you are making the students comfortable with the new topic. So you are going to introduce. We know that any format you take, the terminology will be different, but the idea will be the same. Okay. In the Herbartian step, I have told you that is it is first one is what is first one? First one is preparation or introduction. Isn't it? Same thing is coming here. Engage. Okay. So what is happening? The students are going to be ready to learn the new topic. They are sitting in front of you and you are engaging them with a suitable introduction. A very good introduction to motivate them, to arouse curiosity. Then comes they are going to explore. What are they are going to explore? The new things which the teacher is going to teach. And here, mind it that it is a constructivist format where the students are supposed to do work by themselves. So what is happening in constructivist is the role of the teacher shifts to the role of a facilitator. Who is a facilitator? Facilitator is a person who, what is called, brings all adequate facilities in the classroom for the students to learn. So students with those facilities will explore. What they are going to do? They are going to explore the new things, find out new things. Once they find out the new things with the help of the materials available with them, they will come to an inference. They will come to a solution. And that solution will be explained. How they can explain? They are going to read the concept and that will be written in the form of a definition or an explanation that will be reported to the teacher or communicated to the other members of the class. That is explained. Then they are going to elaborate. What is elaboration? Elaboration means they are going to find out new things related to these things. That is the already existing knowledge. They are going to link with the new things. And at last, evaluation. So for every action, at last, there should be evaluation. So all these 5 things, 5 E's, is the basic constructivist format. Here, this is purely a student-centered method and the students are self-learning, learning by doing, and all facilities provided by the teacher. So what is happening in behaviorism, I have told you, which should be kindly avoided, but there are certain situations where you use only behaviorism. Is it sometimes full of theories, sometimes full of what is called without any activities, some topics without any activities, you use the behaviors. Here also there is a step. That is, first of all, you prepare the students. Student preparation is actually needed. And for that, you make the students ready to learn. Then the second step is you instruct them. So whole instruction is done by the teacher because I told you it is a teacher-dominated method. So what is happening? You provide a stimulus, you get a response from the student. You ask a question, you get the response. So that is being done in this behaviorist format. And then the progress assessment. So once you ask a question, if the student fails to answer, you modify your method of teaching and then you ask again and thus you assess their progress. Then practice. What is practice? You know, you do one thing 3 or 4 times. That is practice. So what a teacher does in a behaviorist classroom is, teacher will repeat the same thing 1 or 2 or 3 times. And that will help the student to what is called memorize. Okay, that is the practice in this behaviorist format. And at last, the lesson wrap up. That is the summarization. Summarization along with evaluation. So these are the steps in the behaviorist format. That is the student preparation, instruction, progress assessment, practice, and lesson wrap up. Okay, so here what is happening is the students become passive listeners only, and the teacher is active there, or the dominant personality in the classroom. Now, we are now interested in activity based lesson plan format. Just I am giving you a format which you can follow when you prepare a lesson. Okay. And I have already told you that give importance to activities, whatever be the subject, because students like learning by doing. But we always say that we cannot finish the portion within the period of time, or there are such and such distractions, or such and such things are not available in class or in the school, or it is not available in the market. That is not an excuse from the part of the teacher. Okay, they will have to find avenues or resources from anywhere and bring in the classroom. So first you write the general information that is common to all lesson plans, such as name of the teacher, in which school you are teaching, what subject you are teaching, what is the name of the unit, that is a chapter. Then you divide the chapter into very small lessons, and that you give a name to that lesson, and that is the topic. And what is the stage? That is, if it is an 8th standard student, it is 13 plus. 12 plus, sorry, 12 plus. If it is a 9th standard student, he is 13 plus. 10th standard student, he is 14 plus. Okay, what is the strength of the classroom? Out of 40, there were only 35. So 35 by 40. In which period or in which date, on which day you took that class? That is, you will write the date. Then you will write a statement. And what is the relevance of this statement? Suppose a layman, another person will come and see your lesson plan. You are, and what is going to happen in this class? He will get an idea of the happenings in the class just by reading the curricular statement, just by reading that single statement. That is through experimentation, observation, discussion, and inference. The students are made aware of the topic. What topic? You have written the topic in the general information, isn't it? So, through experimentation, that is, you bring some activity. No need of big experiments and all. Small activities enough. And through that activity, the students are observing. That is the basic skill which a student should have in the classroom. Whatever subject it be, they should observe. You know the difference between observation and seeing. Seeing is just for both things you are using your eyes, but seeing is just without any purpose, but observation is with the purpose. So it is the duty of a teacher to help the students develop skill of observation in the classroom. So once they do an activity, they will observe and they will discuss. Give some time for discussion, 5 minutes or 10 minutes, they will discuss and they will reach an inference, because this is a complete format for an activity based lesson plan. And once they reach the inference, they will be made aware of the topic. Now you are going to analyze the content. That is, you have got a content for 40 to 45 minutes with you. You divide it into different ways. That is, first you introduce the new terms. What all terms are there? You write on the left side of the blackboard, new terms. Okay? You are coming across this 40 minutes. Then you write the facts. What all facts can be presented by the teacher in the classroom? There may be 3 or 4 facts in the classroom depending upon the topic. Now, based on the facts, the students will form what is called the concepts. What are concepts? Concepts are ideas or some what is called some patterns or some relationships which they form, which the students form with the help of the facts provided by the teacher. Okay, then you will have some principles in that lesson. Then you will have some theories, some equations will be there, some laws will be there, some generalizations. That is, you are going to what is called bring all the things in one category and name it as a generalization. So you are dividing the topic into these subheadings: new terms, facts, concepts, principles, theories, laws, and generalization. Then you are going to write the contextual objectives. I have told you that there should be an objective before you actually implement the lesson in the classroom. Is there any problem? Can you see the slide? Okay. Okay, so the contextual objectives. Okay, contextual objectives are the pupil is, what is doing? He is doing. That is revised Bloom, I have told you. You stick on to that, revised Bloom. Remembering, going to remember the different facts, concepts, etc. Understanding the facts, concepts, etc. Applying this situation, the facts which they have learned or the concepts which they have formed in a new situation. Analyzing the topic, evaluating. But there are certain topics where we will not reach the evaluating level. Okay, so if there are no evaluating things you can mention, just skip off that evaluating. Okay, there are only certain topics which you can include evaluating. Then comes creating. Creating means that is they can create something new. That is they have learned new topic. So they are at that point. This is that they have accumulated that much knowledge and they have understood, or we can say they have got an idea about the new topic. And these are the objectives which have to be set before taking a class by the teacher, and these objectives are being achieved by the pupil. Okay? And what are the prerequisites? A pupil should know certain things before coming to the class. That may be that he got from some lower classes, or sometimes he might have read some books, or he might have heard from somewhere. Isn't? So the teacher should know what are the prerequisites of a student, that is the entry behavior of the student or the previous knowledge of the student. That as a 8th standard teacher or a 9th standard teacher you should know. That is, and then comes the teaching learning resources. That is what all teaching aids and learning aids you can bring in the classroom. All these can be listed here. Then next one is you are going to divide the column into two. That is, one is classroom interaction procedure. Next one is expected pupil response. Why you write expected? Because you are going to a class, isn't it? And you are anticipating such and such response will come from the pupil, but the actual response will be sometimes different. But when you plan a lesson, you have not come into the actual situation, so you're only expecting. So write like that. So what is happening in classroom interaction procedure? Again, divided into different steps. One is introduction. I've told you success of a lesson depends upon how well you introduce. So in the introduction, you will write what all things you are going to show in the classroom. Maybe a video, maybe an explanation, or maybe what is called an activity, or solving a numerical problem it may be, or maybe a small photo or a pictorial representation or an illustration, etc. Then you are going to present the topic. That is, you write the first fact. I have told you in the general information, you write 3 or 4 facts. Not in the general information, content analysis. You write 3 or 4 facts. Bring the first fact here. First fact in the presentation. Then you divide the class into small groups. Give activity 1. Activity 1 means the activity is related to fact number 1. You give it to them. And once they do it, you ask them, what did you infer from this? What did you find? After observation, what did you find? Write it on the blackboard. Then give them the second activity. Second activity is related to fact number 2. And this process goes on till the whole number of facts are over. And at last, you will consolidate the lesson. The consolidation takes place. That is, from the beginning to the end, the students, the teacher with the help of the students, not reverse. Teacher with the help of the students. The students should, what is called, pour in ideas, pour in the concepts which they have accumulated in the classroom. And that is the correct way of writing this activity-based lesson plan. And this process goes on till the whole number of lessons are over, till the whole unit is over. Go to the next chapter, divide the chapter into different lessons, and the same procedure goes on. And you will see to the next column, that is expected pupil response. I expect this from the students, but the students did not respond to it correctly. So what should I do? Maybe I can give them some remedial teaching, or maybe I can help them with more examples. Maybe I can relate with life-related examples. Maybe I can make the explanation simpler. Maybe I can give some hint or clue to the question I have asked, isn't it? Or maybe I can make the question more simpler. So the ways by which you can change your style, and that is what is called a reflection. So after each class, reflect on your practices. That is, you reflect. You stand in front of your mirror hours to hours, isn't it? To see your reflection. Same thing. After each and every class, you see whether the class is being correctly taken. If it is not up to your expectation, up to the student's expectation, you should modify it. And the next class, you make this modification. And as days go by, you will become a perfect teacher. So after that, you give review to the students. That is, review means the whole questions will be asked from beginning to end. Simple, direct questions will be asked, and you give follow-up activities in the form of an assignment, in the form of a project, and you will give some time for the students to write the assignments and ask them to submit their work, and you will correct the work, and this process will go on. Isn't it? And this is the way. And after the follow-up activities, mind that you are always what is called monitoring the students, monitoring the progress of the students. That is very much needed. And also you reflect on your action. And while you're taking class, you should again reflect. You should be reflecting what I'm doing in the class, whether I'm going in the right way. That is again reflection in action. Okay. And after the classes, you should again reflect on all the things you have done in the classroom. So that is again a very important thing. So what is the advantage? I have already told you the advantages of planning as a whole. The same thing is effective for lesson planning also. That is, it gives confidence, security, self-reliance, makes the work systematic and well organized. And it can correlate with other physical and social environment. I have told you there is correlation. Two types of correlation. One is incidental, other one is systematic. So what is happening in incidental? While I take the class, automatically I think of there is something happening there, so I will correlate it there. Okay, that is incidental. But what is happening in systematic? That is, you are planning. While you are writing your lesson plan, you will write. That is, when I explain this thing here, I will correlate, bring this correlation of biology here. So it is a planned thing. That is called systematic. So when the teacher enters the class, he will remember what he has written in the lesson plan. So when he will, what is called teach, when he come to that portion, he will correlate it with geography or with earth science or with history or with arts and humanities or with language, with music. You can relate any subject with any other subject, isn't it? You cannot teach a subject in isolation. So all other, you cannot teach subject in watertight compartments. Everything is related to one another. So you are correlating your lessons with physical and social environment. It will save time. It maintains proper discipline, not only for the teacher as well as for the student. It reduces repetition of ideas, I have told you. And on the spot evaluation and doubt clearance can be made. Because while the teacher is writing the lesson plan, he will think that this is a difficult area. There may be questions arising from this, isn't it? So he can leave some space there or leave some time there. So that is being done in lesson planning. Then individualizing instruction. I have told you there is individual difference in the class. You cater to the needs of each and every individual. Then variety of lesson plans. You know, lesson plan number 1 will be of one type, and you can continue this topic as lesson 2 with a variety of methods or variety of interesting activities. So the students will get all these experiences in the classroom. So that is again the advantage of lesson plan. So for your reference, this is just a text written by me. And if you need any assistance, you can contact me regarding the lesson plans and any other difficulties which you face during your teaching learning process. Thank you. Thank you listening to me, and thank you to all the organizers. Thank you.